This weekend is the GMTK Game Jam 2024, and I love game jams. It's how I first got into game development way back in 2022 when I made my very first game. They're still over on itch, which is just wonderful to be able to see these games way back in time over on itch, and just to see, even back then I used Unity. I'm a Godot user now, but back then I used Unity, and just to see the kind of the janky game that I made, but I'm so proud of this game. This was the first thing that kind of gave me that itch to want to keep working on games. And since there, over the years, I've continually made more and more game jams. I think this is probably my 6th or 7th game jam, and you can just see some of these entries over time, kind of culminating in my 2 commercial games, Chess Survivors and Hexagod. But GMTK is coming up, and so I wanted to share some of my game jam tips and things I've learned over the years to not necessarily win a game jam, but it's really hard to make a game with a time constraint, which is also fun. It makes your design sharper, it makes your decision making quicker, and you can learn so much more in a compressed timeline than you ever could if you gave yourself 2 months to make a game. So we're gonna dive right in. If this is your first time, good luck out there. My name's Aarimous. I'll be over on Twitch if you want to hang out during the game jam. This first tip's kind of the most important tip, and that is have a goal for the game jam. Have a reason why you're joining it. Maybe you're trying to learn something new. Maybe you're just trying to finish a game for the first time. And I'm gonna say this because I think I have it in the back of my head. There's a small voice that says, you can go win the game. You can make a game that's good enough that Mark showcases it in his top 20 of the top 100 video he makes every game jam for the GMTK game jam. But that's an output goal. Make it an input goal, something that you can control. It's dangerous to try to have a goal be like win the game jam because there's so many things out of your control. Who ranks your game? How that person was feeling in the day? Did they understand the mechanics? Heck, did they even like the genre of the game jam you have? There's so much randomness that's outside of your control. So sometimes it's good to have, not even sometimes, I would say it's really good to have a goal that's something inside of your control. And the goals for GMTK for me are usually pretty similar. I want to make a playable game that I'm proud of. And playable here is doing a lot of work because it's not an easy thing to do. And something I'm proud of, something that I look back at and I say, wow, Aarimous, that was a fun jam. We did something interesting there. The next one is going to be focused on doing one thing really well and polishing the living shit out of it. And the final one is going to be to try to implement the theme in a clever and interesting way. And that can be a bit of a tricky pickle, but we'll get into some ideas of ways you can tackle this beast in a hot second. And my bonus goal is to find an idea that could become a Steam released game. And this doesn't mean I have to, in the next week, take the game and bring it out to Steam. It just means eventually I want to. And I actually kind of did that with one of my previous game jam entries, actually for the GMTK 2022, which had the theme of roll of the dice. I ended up implementing this in a kind of a Stacklands minimalistic villager game where you can throw your villagers into these little cards and they spit out food dice. You can feed your villagers and you have to put them up in this goal area over here. My biggest fault is I put white text on a light background. Maybe without that the game would have done a little bit better in the rankings. But it's a very fun little game that I actually ended up taking to Steam a couple years later. Earlier this year, I started working on Hexagod, and it's currently in the demo phase. I'm getting ready for the October Next Fest, and surprisingly, I threw away all of the dice mechanics, added hexagons and cards, and made this really fun little minimalistic village builder that focuses on having just an enjoyable, kind of idle-ish gameplay loop that you can play right now. My next tip is to focus on doing one thing really well. And this comes down to a scoping mechanic. And there's ways of approaching this idea where you take your core idea, write it down in a design document, and then you start cutting stuff out very ruthlessly because you only have so much time. You have to start cutting and cutting and cutting. So have an idea, cut it in half again, and cut it in half even in the third time because you really honestly don't have that much time to get going. And a great example of this would be my second game jam entry. My first one was this network protector here where my only goal for that jam was to just get a game completed. This is back when I actually used Unity, and you simply kind of just move this little player around, and then every couple seconds you rotate and you can only move in the new axis. So I was just trying to make something decent here. But then the next game jam, I'm like, let me do that one thing really well and focus on that mechanic and make it a really, really simple idea. And then from there you can polish. You'd be surprised how effective that can be. So this is for It Is a Loop, and you simply are running around this loop, and I focus on trying to make it this is like the first jam entry that I was like, I wanted to make it look decent. I wanted to make it look simple and have it kind of just explore this loop mechanic and go from there. So keep it simple, keep it small, and once you think you have something small, make it a bit smaller, and then you can always add stuff more and more in the future. My next tip is going to be for you to do some time management, and that comes down to how do you block your time. And the kind of rule of thumb we've come up with a little bit through talking about this over the course of the streams and all the different ones I've done is use about 10% of that to do ideation at most. You might have a really good idea for the theme right away. Take some time, make that design document, write a long to-do list of all the things you need to do, cut that down again, and keep that idea small. Focus on doing one thing really well, and then start doing your coding. You're going to then spend probably the next like 10 to 20% of the jam getting that core gameplay loop going, and ideally get that build published on itch in a web-based version so that you can make sure that works. The worst feeling is getting to the end of the jam and having you publish it and it doesn't work very well. So kind of really about, I would say it's like the 40% point of the jam. You want to have your core gameplay loop done. And then from there, you can just keep on polishing. We'll make this red, like polish, 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 and playtest, 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 and keep getting those builds iteratively pushed up there so you can do it. So you can actually get the gameplay running and working. The other interesting thing from a coding standpoint, it's like this, if we had this graph down here and it was like, we had time down here and you have like quality over here. As you're working through the jam, your quality of your code should be up here, and eventually the quality is just going to, it'll be up here, and then eventually it'll just start, you have to just start making it work. This is the duct tape phase of the game, and make sure you switch over into this phase at some point. You don't need to keep making really high quality code through the end of the jam. At some point, you should say, screw it, we're just gonna make it work. Let me slap this together, and it just has to barely work. And so make sure you do this. I've had jams before where I try to make too good of code through like to this point of the jam, and you should really be flipping at that 40% point to like get that core gameplay loop done and then polish and bug fix, maybe a little bit of scope creep in there, probably a little bit of scope creep, let's be honest, and then just drive to the end with just as much duct tape and spaghetti code as possible. This next one's a tip for kind of getting your game ranked by more people, because at the end of the day, a lot of these game jams will have you need 20 rankings or something like that. So a good tip to do two things here. One, make sure it's a web-based build. You can use a site called itch.io, and you can go and publish your web-based build there. Make sure you understand how to do that. If you have a little bit of time before the jam starts, this is a great moment to make sure you can actually get that pipeline going and understand how to do it. My one tip and reminder is make sure you name your file index.html for itch, and then it'll find that, and that's the actual game file it runs. I use Godot. It's a really easy exporting system. Your mileage may vary for your different engines, but publish the game as a web-based build. It'll make it so much easier for other people to come out here and play the game and rank the game. The other little tip I'm going to say as far as that goes is just make sure you're reading the rules of the game jam. Typically, the game jam will have a bunch of rules and things that you need to understand. If you have questions, you can usually reach out to people in their Discords and stuff like that, but read the rules so you're following the submission files and you're using assets correctly and all those different things, because sometimes the rules are like no assets, sometimes it's like, hey, things you have commercial rights to, and sometimes it can be even a bit further than that. And just making sure that you can actually get into a state where people are going to be able to play your game easily is a really great tip, because it's terrifying to download an exe file, because at the end of the day, that could be a virus. That could be a virus. So if you're going out and ranking other games, think about that before you download it. Maybe create a system so you can have a fun sandbox. I'm a dumb programmer. I don't trust myself. I don't trust the internet. And as such, I only play web-based games when I'm going out and ranking these, because it could just be malware. Stay safe. My last tip is to have fun with this. Game jams are a great community event where people come around to participate together, to make games, to learn, and to grow. I'll be streaming live over at twitch.tv/Aarimous the whole weekend. I'd love if you stop by. You can ask me what I'm doing. I'll see what you're doing, and it's fun to jam together. There's game development can often be a very isolating experience, and so participating in game jams is a great way to meet new people, maybe team up with somebody you've never worked with before, try something new, and hang out over on Twitch and have a good time. But Also, make sure that you're taking care of yourself. 4 days is a long jam. Flashbang warning here. I have my schedule coming up. Where the heck's the schedule? GMTK 2024. Here you go. I have my schedule coming up. It is a long jam, so make sure you're sleeping. Make sure you're eating, you're taking your breaks. Don't burn yourself out day one working 48 hours straight in a row. Your brain's just not going to work. You're going to probably get to day 2 on Sunday and all of a sudden be like, I'm not really working to do it. Remember, we're trying to make a game that is playable, publishable, small, and at the end of the day, make something that you're proud of. Have good goals going into it. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you are doing those things that'll help make you successful in the long run of this game jam. And I hope if you're anything like me, you'll do this game jam. Maybe it's your first time. You'll get that game development bug. And before you know it, you might too be getting your demo for your upcoming game, Hexagod, over on Steam. You can't name it Hexagod. I already took that name. But if you have a game, let me know down in the comments or Discord, over in Twitch, whatever it is. Good luck out there. You're better than you think at this. I'm rambling. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.